puts me in the mindset of what MLK said in his letter to Birmingham jail, and letter from Birmingham jail, and I'm paraphrasing when he said, listen, it's not the conservative or the racist white person that you got to be concerned about, because at least we know where they stand, what they want, and what it is they're going to say, and how they're going to move politics and institutions to make that happen. He literally says in that letter, but it is the folks that we have to be concerned about. It is the case that the folks that we have to be concerned about are white liberals, white progressives, and white moderates, right? I'm Antwann Michael, and this is The Breakdown. Let's get into it. CNN Plus launched in March of 2022. By April of 2022, CNN Plus was canceled due to a lack of subscribers, lackluster content, as well as very few deals to carry the platform, among other reasons. In other words, in her role at CNN Plus, Rebecca demonstrated that she does not have the skill set to pull together effective programming to engage audiences, generate revenue, and sustain a network. Yet she was named CEO of MSNBC and began making cuts that are unsubstantiated by the data or viewer preferences. Imagine a world where one can fail forward and fail up. That one is given all of the resources that are needed to be successful from a major news network, and that news network wants to establish effectively a side project that is going to generate revenue, that is going to bring more people to the platform, and they've given you all of the resources, right? They have the media team that are experts in audio and video. You have marketing, right? You have people that are in design. You have the news anchors, your headlining news anchors that have the talent that they can bring over to this platform to generate more revenue. You are handed all of the resources. The only thing you have to do is arrange the puzzle pieces in such a way that it is effective and that it generates something. But instead, what happens is a month later, that project collapses to the ground, and in 2-3 years later, you are made the president/CEO of a major news network that is actually the competitor network of the network that you were formerly at. That is the story of Becky Cutler. And if you are not familiar with who I'm talking about, or you don't know what I'm talking about, make sure you go to my profile and you watch MSNBC and Media Politics, because that is what this breakdown is all about, right? So, it is and I'm just speaking from the Black experience, right? Because obviously I'm Black. Hello, nice to meet you. It is really the experience of Black people on a larger scale, that we can have all of the degrees, we can have all of the job experiences, and we are not allowed to fail forward or fail up. As a matter of fact, we succeed back and succeed down, because somehow Black success is seen as a threat in many corporate spaces, right? That in those moments, we are forced to do lateral moves. We are forced to be demoted downward, or in the case of Joy Reid, we are wholly terminated. But Becky, in this particular instance, is protected, and she's coddled, and she's actually lifted up, right? Like, the corporate mindset then becomes that because she failed at this small project, let's give her a bigger project and give her another chance, because, she just needs something bigger with more people under her that she can delegate that, and that will make her look good, right? There's a lot of lessons in this particular news story to be learned. And, I will share this with you. In researching for this particular news story, right, it was not that easy to find out things about Becky Cutler. Her tracks are extremely covered, but there are two things that I did, find out about her in the process of researching this that was consistent across people. Number one, that folks were like, oh, she's extremely liberal, she's progressive, she wants everyone to be involved. Talk about that in just a few seconds. And the other part of it was that, she's a cutthroat executive. She's tough as nails. She's not going to take, anything from anyone. We'll talk about that in just a bit, right? But for this first part, as it relates to being liberal and progressive, it really puts me in the mindset of what MLK said in his letter to Birmingham jail, and letter from Birmingham jail, and I'm paraphrasing when he said, listen, it's not the conservative or the racist white person that you got to be concerned about, because at least we know where they stand, what they want, and what it is they're going to say, and how they're going to move politics and institutions to make that happen. He literally says in that letter, but it is the folks that we have to be concerned about. Well, it is the case that the folks that we have to be concerned about are white liberals, white progressives, and white moderates, right? Because, they said, can we slow down the movement? Can we maybe do this another way? There's going to be too much police there. Not sure how I feel about that. And they're contemplating about how to go about solving the issues. Black lives hang in the balance, right? The lives of people of color hang in the balance. Why? Because you have those who are not persons of color, those who are not black folk, who are centering their worldview because the world has always been structured and contoured in their favor. And these are the people that King warns about. And lo and behold, here is Becky Cutler in 2025 doing this craziness, right? And then on the other hand, we have Becky Cutler that is described as a cutthroat executive that makes the tough decisions. And it really becomes performative, right? It really becomes performative in the sense that she's saying, but for me being a woman, then I too would be able to be like the men who run NBC, Universal, and Comcast more broadly. That I want to be able to wield that type of power, make these type of decisions that are uninformed by the data, right? That it makes no sense, because what the Daily Beast article makes clear is that vis-a-vis the Nielsen data is that Joy Reid is number 3. In front of her is Lawrence O'Donnell and Rachel Maddow. Yet here comes Becky and says, you got to get out, sorry, and then replaces Joy with all people, Jen Psaki. Jen Psaki, the former White House press secretary who has no experience in the broadcasting network whatsoever on that level in terms of leading a major news network show, whose ratings were either equal to Joy in some metrics or Joy exceeded her in other metrics. That Jen Psaki comes in, Becky Cutler positions Jen Psaki to come in and replace Joy Ann Reid, because there are larger moves that are being made by the network, and Becky Cutler is willing to get down with the larger moves that are being made. Whereas the sister that was in the role before Becky Cutler was not willing to get down, right? And what that says to me, and I wasn't able to find evidence towards this, but what this suggests to me is that there was already conversations about getting rid of Joy. And that as soon as, our sister, I believe her name is Rashida, as soon as she moved out of the way and they replaced her with Becky, Becky was like, yep, I'll do it because I too want to willpower. I too want to be like that. And herein is the breakdown. Herein is the lesson. Becky Cutler and people like her are precisely why black folk have a hard time within social movement organizing spaces with forming a bridge with white communities and white women more specifically. Because when white women navigate into positions of power, what navigates through the mind, this is what Kimberly Crenshaw gets at in her piece, right? Demarginalizing the intersection of race and sex. You should check that out. That when white women get into these roles, what they center is having that power like their gendered, racialized counterparts. Instead of saying, let's dismantle this, let's think about doing this a different way, or even at the very least, if they're not going to think about doing this in a different way, at least how do I facilitate fairness in this moment? Right? But instead of thinking through things like that, they say, I too want to be that. This is why there is a problem. What's the lesson to be learned here? That allyship is going to cost you something. You're going to have to give something up. That is the reality of the fact. If you want this to be a more equitable society, if that's what the goal is, then you've got to make more effective decisions. And it's more than just Becky Cutler. Becky Cutler is pattern and practice of what is happening in the United States and the world more broadly. That you have people in key positions that are making decisions that are harmful to people and their families, right? And the reality of the fact is, people like Becky Cutler demonstrate for us that what is taking place in society is not happenstance. These are conscious selections. Becky walked herself into her office, sat down, looked at that data, and made a decision to ask Joy Reid. This is why there is a problem with trust. And so the lesson to be learned here is that if we're going to be in an equitable society, if we're going to be making room for others, you have to be willing to give something up. Everyone has intersectional identities, so you're going to have to be able to lean in and learn from other people, right? There's a lesson to be learned here from Becky Cutler. And Becky Cutler wants to be one of the boys. And Becky Cutler is unwilling to yield her societal and institutional privilege in order to make room for others. And she's made that abundantly clear, so much so that the executives at NBC and Comcast understands that she is not a threat, but that she's willing to roll along with the punches. But as history has taught us, be careful, because once they establish the side company that they're trying to establish, they will get rid of you too. You got to be careful when you dig those ditches for other people, because you might want to have one for yourself. All right, this is the breakdown for MSNBC in media politics. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.